Thursday afternoon to you. Hope you're having a great day. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. The NBA trade deadline has come and gone. We'll talk plenty of Cavs a little later in the show. Sam Amico from hoopswire.com will join us. We'll go through the trade deadline and talk about the Cavs as well as some of the other moves that were made today. And we will begin by talking Cavs and then get into Browns with Jeff Phelps from 92.3 The Fan, as well as the Cavs post, and halftime shows on Bally Sports. So, Jeff, earlier in the week, Caris LeVert comes here and trade deadline. Cavs talking, but stand pat. When you look at this roster, it's pretty good and it's really young.
It's deep too, Dave. You kind of were waiting to see what they might add that could maybe complement everything. And I think Caris LeVert's the perfect guy to do that, because he's a wing guy who can also handle the ball a little bit. And so you're looking for a little depth handling the basketball, and another guy who can play the two guard, play the small forward spot at the three position. And I think he's a perfect fit there. Happy to be here. Ohio guy, getting back home. And so he's pretty happy about it. And I think he's going to be a real nice addition.
And again, everybody's all excited because, a game and a half out of first place in the Eastern Conference. This team's a couple of years from being a serious championship contender. Let them grow, let them go, let them develop.
Are they really?
I think so. Do you think? What do you think?
I would think you're right, except I don't know that anybody thought that they would be where they are right now. So when you're this close to first place in an Eastern Conference that's really up in the air, I don't know. Though in theory, I think everybody should probably agree with what you said, because, their starters are all 24 and younger. You would think that needs to mature. But never thought they'd be where they are right now, so I wouldn't rule anything out this year, especially in the East.
I would agree. Now, the East got a little bit more difficult with the Sixers and the Nets trade, with Harden going to the Sixers and Simmons going to the Nets. But you're right. We'll see what happens. That's the best way to discuss it. All right, on to the Browns. Time for us to head to time for us to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. And this caller wants to talk about Baker Mayfield and the weapons that he has.
What I want to bring up is for Kevin. He needs weapons. Baker had weapons. All pros. Jarvis Landry. Baker Mayfield, Jarvis Landry, and Odell. He had everything he needed. We keep making excuses. Why do we keep making excuses for him? If he's not doing it, he's not doing it. Odell is in the Super Bowl. We're not, and we're sitting here, and we're making excuses. He was open. The video showed that he was open. Okay, receivers drop balls. So please tell me, Aaron Rodgers throws to Devontae Adams. Tom Brady threw to Mike Evans, even in double coverage. Throw to your number one. Enough with the plays over players. No. Go to your number one player. And he wanted out. He got out, and now he's in the Super Bowl. Got to make you think, don't it?
Yeah, I get where he's going with that. But if you look at the Browns receiving core and you look at any of the other receiving cores that were in the playoffs, they're not close. Odell didn't want to be here. Jarvis Landry was playing on 1.5 legs.
Oh, really?
You're going to disagree with that one too?
I think he was happy to be here. Now, he wasn't happy after he didn't get the football a lot. So at that point, it's becoming a business decision. His career was getting, I wouldn't say trash, but he wasn't really getting a chance to show what he could do. And I don't think he's the receiver that he used to be, Dave, but I still think he's better than anybody that the Browns had on their roster all season long. So at wide receiver. So if he was disgruntled and wanting to get out, okay, but he wasn't used very well here, either by the offensive coordinator, who is the head coach, basically, or the quarterback. So I have a really hard time pointing fingers of blame at Odell on this.
Scheme or quarterback then?
Well, now that's a good question. And I don't know the answer to that. I would think it's quarterback more than scheme, but maybe the scheme didn't put the quarterback and the receiver on the same page. The bottom line, and I hate to look back on it, so I'm going to look forward. What my thought is okay, if it didn't work with Odell, why is it going to work with the next more skilled wide receiver you bring in here? Why would it work then? And I don't know the answer to that, and that scares me a little bit.
Does that lead you to believe something has to change schematically?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, either schematically or your quarterback. Maybe your quarterback needs to get more on the same page with the guy. I have a hard time blaming the guy who doesn't have the ball. And that would be Odell, or that would be Jarvis, or that would be Donovan Peoples-Jones. I thought it was interesting that once Odell left and Baker started throwing to Donovan Peoples-Jones as more of his number one wide receiver, because remember, Jarvis was out for a while. And I looked it up. I don't remember the exact stats, but the completion percentage to Donovan Peoples-Jones while Odell was on the roster was something like 70% of the passes that Baker threw his way were completed. And after Odell left and Donovan Peoples-Jones was in theory the number one option, that completion percentage dropped to like 50 or 45%. So it made me think he's not either giving his first option enough of a chance to get open, or he's bailing on it too soon, or he's not trusting himself or something. But that made me think quarterback and maybe a little scheme.
Fair enough.
You can look it up.
Yeah.
With targets and completions, the completion percentage to DPJ was terrible after Odell left.
Yeah, and the thing is, he was kind of forced into a role he probably wasn't ready for, being the main focus, the main receiver. That's a guy that was a 6th-round pick.
Yeah, but somebody's going to have to be. So what's going to be the difference in that guy in this offense next year? I hope the answer is Odell was a terrible fit here and it was all his fault, because he's the only thing that's not still here. I don't think that's the case.
Yeah. All right. Let's take a look at 3 wide receivers who could be trade targets in 2022 NFL Spin Zone. So this is for the Browns. Number 3 is Brandon Cooks. Number 2 is Calvin Ridley. And number 1, Amari Cooper of the Dallas Cowboys. And Jeff, we've talked before, and the thought being you may have to trade for a wide receiver because signing a free agent, you're going to have to convince them that there's a chance of being elite here, I guess.
Either that or make payday really friendly for them.
Incentivize it, yes, yes. Of those 3, Ridley, Cooks, Cooper, who do you like?
I think they all 3 have drawbacks. The one I like the most is Calvin Ridley. He's young, he's really good. And he obviously had some issues that kept him out for the Falcons this year. And he says they were mental health issues. And you hope that he can get that straightened out and he can get on with his career, because he's really talented. He's the guy that I would want. But I'd be real leery, Dave, about giving up a lot for him unless I was convinced that he was going to be able to come in here and be ready to play football. Brandon Cooks has played, and I'm not kidding, on 6 teams, I think?
Yeah.
Saints, Patriots, Texans,
Rams.
Keep going. There are a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And then I think Amari Cooper underachieves. I think he's really good, but he's just not a consistently top-end producer. But I'd love to have him on the team, but if you ask me to pick one, I would pick Calvin Ridley.
Well, it's kind of interesting because you mentioned it, again, it would involve a trade, and Ridley sat out. So the Falcons owner, Arthur Blanks, was asked about Calvin Ridley, and they said their main concern is about the guy that is the person, the kid. Love him to stay in Atlanta. Whether or not he wants to do that, he may decide he needs a fresh start somewhere else. So kind of interesting that, the owner of the Falcons is thinking that way in terms of Calvin Ridley.
First round pick would get it done, I would think.
Yeah.
And because of the fact that he didn't play last year and it's a bit of a gamble, Dave, maybe it's like a second and a fourth.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Well, and you can be sure.
I would do it.
You can be sure those are the and again, you got to make sure that he wants to come here, that he's, committed to getting back on the field and getting back to where he wants to. But you can be sure those are the questions that Andrew Berry is asking. All right, we're going to have another voicemail of Truth and Reason. And again, this one about Baker Mayfield.
Yes. You can say all you want about Baker, but he don't perform. Just like that guy said before, just like Joe Burrow. He don't perform. There ain't a 4 under him. I mean, how long we got to wait? You got to wait another 5 years? You guys, the announcers, you guys keep saying, oh, it's going to be any year now. Get another quarterback that can throw, not get interceptions. When you get interceptions, that's what hurts you.
All right, so we appreciate the voicemails. Jeff, it's a tough situation. You would think that by year 5 you have a really good handle on a quarterback. I don't know that the Browns do, just because you've changed systems. You've had 2 good years. You've had 2 pretty bad years with Baker Mayfield.
The worst thing that happened was him getting injured, because it completely convolutes, I would think, the thought process, both on Baker's part, what does he want contractually, and the Browns' part, what do we want to give this guy contractually? And maybe even bigger than that, do we even want to go there? Is he the guy that we need moving forward? I look around at all the teams, Dave, that decided, yeah, we took a guy really high, but he's not going to work out for us. And they moved on from him. Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota in Tennessee, Mitch Trubisky, Sam Darnold with the Jets. I mean, Jared Goff. It's almost like an epidemic now. They are getting rid of these guys, really high draft choices, because they think, nope, we can do better than that. And if the Browns, it's all going to come down to what they think he did this year, and if the injury really affected him, and if they say the injury really affected him this year, then shame on them for putting him out there. And if they decide the injury did not affect him, then they need to make a move, because if the injury didn't affect him, then he wasn't very good. And that's 4 years in. You're pretty convinced Josh Allen is the real deal, right? Patrick Mahomes isn't much older than that. Justin Herbert, you're convinced is the real deal, and he's a second-year pro. Joe Burrow, second-year pro, real deal. It doesn't take 5, 6, 7 years to figure out whether you want to stick with this guy long-term. I would think the Browns already have their decision made up, and they know whether they want to do it or not, and they know whether it was the injury or not. And David, makes me think, if they kept trotting him out there, that they thought he was fine. And if they thought he was fine, and that's the way he played, is that what you want? I wouldn't think so. So I'm real curious as to what the thought process is with the Browns front office on this.
Yeah, everything you say makes sense. But again, we'll see, because what they do will tell us exactly what they think.
Exactly.
Jeff Phelps from 92.3 The Fan, as well as Bally Sports, pre-post halftime for the Cavs. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. We continue to talk Browns with Jeff Phelps, Sports4CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Life is getting back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tri-c.edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for spring classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Jeff Phelps from 92.3 The Fan. We're going to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason with a guy defending Baker Mayfield.
Hello, Dave. This is Ernie from Virginia. I talked to you guys a few weeks ago. I'm the 70-year-old lifelong Cleveland fan. Can't wait to see Cleveland finally go to a Super Bowl before I die. Just listening to this back and forth about Baker Mayfield, I think you really need to give it a rest. You've rehashed it multiple times. Number one, we really don't know what Baker Mayfield is because, especially in this last year, I mean, he did not have an offensive line that he could depend on because his offensive tackles were in and out all the time. Secondly, he didn't have the receivers to throw it to. You talk about his pre-snap decisions. Well, it's hard to make a pre-snap decision if you don't know that you can trust your tackles. So, I mean, there was a multitude of other things. Yeah, he didn't have a great year. Sure, he had a bad shoulder and all that kind of stuff, but give him a chance. Put some pieces in place that he can depend on, including his offensive line and his receivers. And then, you know, Stefanski's going to call a different game too because he's going to know that he's got players that he can depend on.
All right, as always, appreciate the voicemail. And there's truth to what he said, Jeff, but the question is, and we talked about it a little before, if you're in year 5 and you don't know what a guy is, it's a little bit of a problem.
I think it tells you that he's an inconsistent player. If you haven't figured it out, you know, I thought Baker looked phenomenal, and I call him the Magnificent Eight. The 8 games when Freddie Kitchens was his offensive coordinator. I thought he looked great. He was really good. And then the next year when Freddie was head coach, not so much. First year under Kevin Stefanski, I thought Baker played really well and looked good. The team went to the playoffs. They looked terrific. This year he's beat up. If we're going to use that as the reason that he was not very good this year, okay, then they shouldn't have played him. So, I mean, that muddies things up completely. I just think at that position, if you have an option that you think is better, you should go for it. And because so many teams have as of late. And if they think that Baker is okay, then great, bring him back next year. And I hope he's outstanding. But we can't sit here and say, well, this and that and this and that. Nick Chubb was running behind that offensive line that was all beat up, and he did pretty well. So maybe the offensive line wasn't as bad as everybody thought. I didn't think the wide receivers were very good, but I also don't think the quarterback did a good job of getting the ball to the wide receivers. So I mean, it's all tied together, and I don't think the play calling was as effective, I guess is the best way to put it, as it was the year before. And I'm not crazy about the way Kevin called a game this last year. How can you be? The offense didn't put up points. You know, let's just look at the bottom line. If you call the plays and they work, you're a great play caller. And if they don't work, well, maybe you're calling the right plays and your team didn't execute. But then you've got to call the plays that your team can execute. It's so convoluted and tied together, Dave. That's why I think this year was such a waste for the Browns when it came to that evaluation on Baker, because it's muddier now than it was before the start of the season.
Yeah, much muddier. All right, this one is from the ones I don't agree with. One surprise cut the Browns could make in 2022 offseason from clutchpoints.com. And they say cutting Kareem Hunt makes sense for several reasons. No dead cap space penalty. You see the 6.25. That's a bad idea. I'm going to disagree. I think one of the things that can help the passing game is Kareem Hunt being healthy. And it has nothing to do with Ernest Johnson. But I think the Browns missed Kareem Hunt, who was not healthy for a lot of the game as well. Kareem Hunt does a lot of things that make the Browns offense better.
Agreed. Now, I'll say more than that, but agreed is the bottom line on this one. Kareem's a really good football player, and you need weapons on your football team. Take a look at the teams in the Super Bowl right now. And now they're a wide receiver for Cincinnati, but they have 3 guys at wide receiver, 2 second-round draft choices and a first-round choice. And I think they have 3 wide receivers who are better than any wide receivers the Browns have. At running back, they have Joe Mixon, really good running back. They don't have as deep of a running back room as the Browns do, but just you can put Kareem in the slot, you can move him around. I want playmakers on this offense. And I think the Rams have them, and they went out and brought in more. You have Darrell Henderson, Cam Akers came back, you brought in Sony Michel. They have guys. Cooper Kupp, you brought in Odell, you drafted Van Jefferson. I mean, they put plenty of skill position guys around the quarterback. That helps. So I would not trade Kareem Hunt. I would just make sure I get 2, maybe 3 new wide receivers on this team for next year.
Yep.
Probably 3, maybe even 4. I mean, the only ones I think are going to be back, Dave, are Donovan Peoples-Jones and Anthony Schwartz.
Yep. And you know what? Those are the 2 that there are ways they threaten the defense more. And I think it'll probably be a mutual thing. But we'll get into that a little bit later with Jarvis Landry. All right, one more voicemail before we go to break. This one, something we kind of touched on about Kevin Stefanski.
Yeah, hey, this is Jeff from the West Side. I wanted to talk about Stefanski. I put most of the blame on the entire season on him. Our offense was supposed to be our strong point. It's supposed to be his thing. And yet we have no offense, it seems. We never seen Chubb and Hunt on the field at the same time. He pretty much drove Odell out of here because they couldn't find ways to get him the ball. Baker was injured, so why didn't he have the courage to set him down? We could all see Baker wasn't playing up to par. There's no reason he should have been out there. And then you look at the defense, with the talent that we have there, I mean, you give that talent to a coach like Belichick, he could win the Super Bowl just with the defense. And I don't think it was as good as people said down the stretch. I think they just didn't need to score points on the Browns. Because if they needed to score, they could have scored at will. And so I just put the blame on the coaches this year.
Jeffy, it's kind of interesting because we're talking about a team that was 8-9. When the team was 0-16 and 1-15, you'd have killed for 8-9. Now 8-9 is a huge disappointment. Let me ask you this: does the scheme need a tweak, or does it need to be kind of overhauled?
I wish I knew the answer to that. The scheme seemed to work in Minnesota, and it was basically the same scheme. You had Dalvin Cook, and you had Adam Thielen, and you had Stephon Diggs, 3 skill position guys really performing well in an offense that Stefanski was a part of up there. And so for me, it makes me think the offense maybe needs just tweaked to maybe a more specific skill set here, and the quarterback needs to play better. I think that's it. You tweak it, you make it fit your personnel, maybe a little bit better than it does, and then you hope you get better quarterback play and better wide receiver play. But I think that might go hand in hand, and I think it's more on the quarterback than it is on the wide receivers.
Jeff Phelps and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, some more voicemails. Plus, we'll talk a little bit about Jarvis Landry. Will he be back? Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Jeff Phelps and I continue talking Browns. Time to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the play calling.
Hey, hello, guys. You do a fantastic job. I'm in South Carolina. My name is Steve. I have one comment. I think Stefanski should decide whether or not he wants to be a head coach or an offensive coordinator. And to continue to call plays, he may no longer be a head coach because he's pretty poor at it. That's my comment. Thank you, and you guys do a fabulous job. I'm here in South Carolina watching you on the internet, and God bless you all. Go Browns. Thanks. Bye.
All right. Appreciate the voicemail as always. Jeff, rough crowd. The thing you need to remember about play calling and Kevin Stefanski, he got the job as a head coach because of his play calling. So I
even though he'd only done it 1 year.
Yeah. But I understand why he wouldn't want to give it up. You know, that's what got him here. But again, I don't think he's necessarily thumping his chest saying there is no way I will ever not call plays. I don't think it's that. But I can understand his reluctance. He probably feels he knows the offense better than anybody and what ails it. But man, it's got to get fixed.
And Dave, he did a pretty nice job when they went 11-5, right?
Yep.
By everybody's thought process. So if it worked then, why didn't it work last year? And it worked to 8-9, a record, but the offense just was sluggish. It wasn't. Bottom line was it didn't put up points, and that's what an offense is supposed to do. So did Kevin? Was he brilliant his first year here and stupid his second year? That makes no sense. So what was it? Was it an injured quarterback? Was it? I don't know what it was. I don't know the answer to that. But there are guys who are really into the analytics and breaking it all down, who work for the Browns front office, and they better have an answer to it. They better know what was wrong because that's what they're paid for.
Yeah, and again, it's the offense has to be better, specifically the passing game has to be better. If you look at the difference, that's the difference between the teams that are playing now and the Browns. Passing game was nowhere near where it needs to be. Okay, this one's kind of interesting. 3 reasons the Browns should move on from Jarvis Landry. This one's from Browns Nation. First, how much was Landry's leadership worth? Browns need to complete the OBJ release is number 2. And doing right by Jarvis Landry, number 3. So I think what they're getting at here is some facts about it. Cap hit is very much lessened. It's about, I think it's $1.5 million if they do it by like June 1st or something along those lines. Currently, it's 16.3 is what he's due. They're going to need money, and they're fine under the cap. But in theory, if you're going to go out and sign a number 1 wide receiver or a high-profile free agent, you're going to need money. And the flip side of it is Jarvis Landry might not want to be back if they renegotiate his contract down. And that's kind of what they're getting at by doing right by Jarvis Landry. What are your thoughts on that?
I can see that. Yeah, I can see that. If it were up to me, I would have Jarvis on this team. But I don't think I would have him on this team at the price tag at which he's supposed to play for next year, Dave. $15, $16 million? I don't think that's the wisest investment. And though I like Jarvis, I don't think he's a upper echelon game-changing type of talent, but he's the kind of guy who a quarterback definitely wants on his team. I love his attitude. I love his abilities. But I think if Jarvis can be on one side and you have a more maybe dynamic playmaking type of wide receiver on the other side, I don't want to call Jarvis a possession receiver because to me that insinuates a little guy that catches 4-yard passes and then gains another 2 yards. If you look at Jarvis's numbers, you get that feel. But I do think he's more valuable to this team than that kind of a role. And I like him, and I think he's good, and I love the attitude he brings to the field. I wonder where his heart is after the whole Odell situation. I don't know if that has soured him on the Browns or if it hasn't. But I would want him here if we can make that happen.
Yeah.
But I would not want him back at full boat.
I would agree. If you can extend him and get that dollar figure per year down, he does all the receiving work that the elite wide receivers don't want to do. He does the dirty work. Is kind of the way. He'll go over the middle. He'll take a hit. He'll block. He'll do the things that add up to winning. So I'm with you. But again, I could see where a guy in his situation doesn't want to renegotiate at a lower cost. All right, we're going to head.
Especially, Dave, if he's not convinced he wants to be here. If it's a lower cost, then he just might want to go somewhere else anyway.
Yeah, agreed wholeheartedly. All right, let's go back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This guy this is the viewer thinks David Njoku is quite valuable. Let's listen.
Hi, this is Mustafa, 50-year Browns fan. And I would just like to add a comment to the off-season. I think that our most underrated hero of the season, if you could find one last year, the defense definitely played well. But I think David Njoku is really a great talent, and he's come a long way. And I really would like to see us hold on to him. I think he's a great addition. He has great skill set, great hands, and I think he definitely needs to remain a Brown. Thank you.
All right. Appreciate the voicemail as always. And Jeff, with Njoku, he's kind of a head scratcher. He should be a matchup problem. I know he had some drops, but the Browns don't seem to try to get him in situations where he's that matchup problem that he can run and he's big and he's physical and he does a lot of things, and they never seem to utilize that, to me.
So you're criticizing the scheme.
A little bit. Go figure.
I agree. I think I think Austin Hooper is a good tight end. I think Harrison Bryant could be a real good tight end. But I think Njoku is the biggest weapon you have there. And I don't think they take advantage of that. So I agree with you.
Wow, look at that. We actually agree on something. Two old guys agreeing for the first time in, a half hour? All right, we're going to step aside, take one more time out with Jeff Phelps on the other side of the break. We go back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason about the weight that the Browns put on guys that played at elite college programs. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
We continue talking Browns football with Jeff Phelps from 92.3 The Fan as well as Bally Sports. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the colleges that the Browns players they draft, where they play their college ball.
Hi, yes, this is Jerry from Scottsdale, Arizona, lifelong Browns fan. And my question is, how much weight do the Browns place on drafting great players from winning programs as opposed to great players from losing programs? Is there a weighting that they apply? Thank you.
All right, Jerry, as always, appreciate the voicemail. Jeff, I don't know that it's weighted. I think with some of the elite programs, you get a better sense of how a guy might project. And when you look at the Browns, they draft guys from the SEC. At least Andrew Berry has. There's been an Auburn guy, a Georgia guy last year, Alabama, 2 LSU, and Missouri back in 2020. But they've also drafted, guys from Florida Atlantic, Northwestern. Northwestern was their first pick. Your thoughts on the question?
I think that big-time college football programs spit out big-time college football talent who become good pros. It doesn't mean you can't find guys at some of the smaller schools, but I think that's real common today, Dave. Most of the guys taken high in the draft and who end up becoming good pros went to good colleges. Why? Because they've always been good. So I think they probably put a lot of weight in that, if I had to bet.
Yeah, it's easier to project what you think they're going to be in the NFL when they're playing that elite competition. All right, we're going to take a look at a mock draft from CBSSports.com. This one was done by Josh Edwards. And Josh has the Browns trading Baker Mayfield and the 13th pick for Kyler Murray, and then the Cardinals taking Ahmed Gardner, cornerback from Cincinnati, with that 13th pick. Now let's take a look at Kyler Murray's social media. He has scrubbed all Arizona Cardinals stuff off of it. Now, Jeff, I do not speak middle school girl social media, but I do have 3 girls, as you know. And I think this means that by taking all the Arizona Cardinals stuff off, I think it means he's mad at the Cardinals, which, their contract offer, he's got that 5th-year option coming up, and he didn't like what they were hearing. But I guess the question is, would you do this deal? So Mayfield in 13 for Kyler Murray.
Yeah, I think I probably would. I do have concerns about Kyler Murray. I wonder, is he too small? I think that's a concern, and I wonder about it. But I think I would do that. I think he's probably got more upside.
Yeah,
more mobile.
much more mobile. Freakishly good athlete. Playing in you couldn't have a more different offense in Arizona that he's been playing in and putting up some numbers in than what the Browns offense is. So
the Browns would have to open it up some.
Right.
They might be better off opening it up for Baker too, Dave. That's what he played in at Oklahoma.
Yeah, the reason I think they're connecting the dots is that's the offense that, Kyler Murray followed Baker Mayfield basically at Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. So
exactly.
I think he's more athletic, and that's the only knock I would have, that it would be a huge upgrade as far as his mobility, and that would probably help.
Yeah.
So
I would think so too.
I'm kind of with you. I don't think it's a no-brainer by any stretch, but the more I think about it, I'd probably do that deal.
And Baker was with Cliff Kingsbury at Texas Tech and liked it so much he left.
Yeah. All right. Before we let you go, we got one more voicemail of Truth and Reason, and this one about the team and how they relate to Baker Mayfield.
Hi, this is Mustafa, 50-year Browns fan. Go Browns. I just wanted to say that something I noticed towards the end of the season, mainly after Odell Beckham was released, I could tell by the body language on the sideline that, Baker had lost the confidence of the team. I don't know if it was because of some sort of arrogance or cockiness, but I just felt that, you could tell in the body language that, the team just had given up on him. And I want to know, do you think that was something that had to do with a lot of the play? They just didn't believe in the quarterback anymore. Just your opinion on that. Thank you.
Yeah, I did not see that at all, Jeff. What I would say is I think Baker lost some confidence in himself. I didn't see the team necessarily losing confidence in him.
I think that's probably accurate. It didn't seem as if the team played that way, but the offense just didn't work this year, Dave. I forget the exact number, but it was 17 or fewer points put up by the offense in like 9 of the last 10 games or something like that. Then, well, you're not going to win in the NFL doing that. And they still went 8-9, which isn't the goal. But You know, if Baker's having a good game, if the line's having a good game, they're all going to have better body language. And if they're losing, they're probably not going to have real good body language. So I don't mean to disagree with Mustafa on that, and he might interpret it that way. I just think it's real basic. If you're doing well, everybody looks good. If you're not doing well, people are going to look like they're sulking and mad.
Yeah,
and they probably were.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the one thing you learn from losing, it's no fun. I mean, you can say anything you want. The only thing I've ever learned from losing is I don't want to do it anymore. Let me ask you, you know, do you think Baker, there were times where it looked like he did not trust what he was seeing late in the year. And it, you know, that people would point out, you know, well, he's double pumping and he's clutching. And I'm like, man, that's a sign of somebody just not trusting what he sees.
I think that's probably accurate. Or not trusting his first option, you know, overthinking it, not letting something develop. I don't know what it was, Dave. We just know it didn't work this year. And I'm really sorry that it didn't. Or I'm sorry that Baker didn't play this way healthy, because you'd have your answer. But because he was injured, you don't have your answer. And that is where I'm hoping that the front office has analyzed it like absolute crazy, and they have an answer. You know, yes, the injury affected things, and he's going to be terrific, even though if that's the case, then why'd you play him? Or no, if it wasn't the injury and we need to find somebody else here, or at the very least bring somebody in. The only issue I have there, Dave, we hear all the big time quarterbacks who possible trade targets. I don't think any of those guys are coming here. And I don't think any of the more high-end free agents who are available right now. And I say high-end because they're still all guys who have had some issues. Jameis Winston or Mitch Trubisky are the two that really come to mind. Marcus Mariota is probably going to get let go with Vegas, or Derek Carr is going to be available, one or the other. And Josh McDaniels will take whichever one is left and play him at quarterback. But I don't know that you would ever get one of those guys to come in here with the thought of, you can come in and compete for this job. I don't think that's a situation that free agents are going to be running to and thinking, oh, great, what an opportunity. So you'd have to get a guy, I think, even lesser, you know, maybe bring back Case Keenum, bring back Nick Mullins, and then keep your fingers crossed that Baker's the right guy and that he's terrific and you sign him long term.
Yeah, I mean, one thing's for certain, Jeff, they got to get the quarterback position right. I mean, it's in the NFL, if you don't have a quarterback, you're in trouble.
Yep, and the two teams in the Super Bowl have quarterbacks.
Yep, and all the playoff teams had pretty good quarterbacks as well. Jeff Phelps, 92.3 The Fan, as well as Bally Sports Cavs coverage. Appreciate the time and the insight, buddy. Thanks very much.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me, you guys.
All right, Jeff Phelps. Make sure you listen to him, 92.3 The Fan. You can also see him pre-post and halftime on Cavs games on Bally Sports. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we turn our attention to the Cavs. Sam Amico from hoopswire.com will join us. We're talking Cavs on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
Life is getting back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tri-c.edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for spring classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family
and educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We shift our attention now to the Cavs and the NBA trade deadline. Trade deadline came and went about an hour and 45 minutes ago. Cavs, no deal today. They did make their bigger deal earlier in the week. Let's welcome in Sam Amico from Hoopswire.com. Sam, were you surprised that the Cavs didn't make a minor deal? I know they kept trying. Surprised at all, or kind of what you expected?
It was more or less to be expected. Their big trade obviously over the weekend when they got Caris LeVert. They didn't want to go too crazy in terms of, revamping everything and even adding a piece that might not fit, that might mess with their surprising success. So they looked for a very low-level deal, what they would call a deal around the margins. But they just decided, but we're going to work forward with what we have. And there's always the potential to add another person or another couple people, either with via the buyout market or the G League or something along those lines. So it wasn't a big surprise that they didn't decide to do anything with, a big weekend of getting a big acquisition in Caris LeVert.
All right, so we'll get to the buyout market in a minute. First, LeVert on the floor for the Cavs last night, 4 of 11, 11 points. He looked a little nervous trying to figure his way out. But take a listen to Darius Garland, Cavs point guard, just on what LeVert means to this team.
Just his playmaking and scoring ability. You saw it tonight. He was just getting to his spots really easy. Making a pull up, and he was making reads for everyone else too. So, and he came in and played some really good defense. So, he was our missing piece. So glad to have him.
So the Cavs all-star point guard thinks he's the missing piece, and he does certainly appear to fill some. He gives them some things that they didn't have. They don't have without him.
Yeah, for one, when you lose Colin Sexton and then Ricky Rubio, there goes 29 points a game, almost 30 points a game, actually. And then, you have Darius Garland back there carrying the load, which he's done a very nice job of. But you needed somebody else to be able to handle the ball, be able to score, which obviously LeVert can do. We had 42 points in his last game as an Indiana Pacer. So, you have that explosiveness that will allow Garland to operate a little more freely, because if you are a defender or another team and you put all of your attention on Darius Garland, LeVert's going to be able to kill you that way. So it was just a perfect fit. Not only can he score and handle the ball to relieve Garland, but he can also defend on the perimeter. He's got nice size at 6'6", and I think moving forward we will be able to see more of his explosiveness because with Darius Garland being an all-star, teams are going to start keying on him a little bit more. They always say you want to stop the head of the snake, quote unquote. So they will try to do that with Garland, and LeVert should be able to be open and break defenses down.
Well, one of the guys that knows LeVert better than anybody with the Cavs is Jarrett Allen. They played together with the Nets. This is Jarrett Allen on why LeVert fits so well with the Cavs.
Great guy, great teammate, great guy to have in the locker room. And secondly, from what I've known him, he's buys into the system easily. He's not going to try to be the wild card. He's not going to try to stick out and go off and do his own thing. He's going to try to do everything he can for the team to win. He adds another ball handler with size. He's 6'7", 6'8". You saw the passes that he made to the corner. He threw me a lob during the game, and then he's able to get his own shot. Last night you had to shake off the rest, new team, new environment. But going forward, I expect a lot more from him.
And, that's important to note. He had 11 points. He had one practice. He's trying to, he admitted he felt like he was in his first day of school when he walked onto the court because everybody's thrilled that he's, with the Cavs. Did you notice the difference? It looked like there was more space on the court when he was on the floor. Did you notice that, or am I reading into it too much?
No, for sure. That's something that they're going to be able to utilize in terms of being able to, get more open on the perimeter. He's not a great outside shooter by any stretch, LeVert, but he's able to drive to the basket, get buckets that way. He will hit some outside shots. And when he drives to the basket, as we just heard Jared Allen say how he threw Allen a beautiful lob that forces the defense to converge on LeVert, creates some openings for other people. It definitely will space the floor. It's just like having a Colin Sexton out there or anybody else who can get buckets if you're going to leave him open. If you don't, he can drive and create for others. So very quickly, we're going to see how much easier it is for the offense to operate, how much more space is available. I'll disagree with Jared there. I don't think LeVert's 6'8", but I would give him a solid 6'6". And when you can look over defenders the way he can and see over defenders, that enables him to pass the basketball and create openings, not only on the perimeter, but down low for guys like Allen and Mobley and Markkanen when he gets back.
Program height. We like that. 6'8", 6'6". It's all the same. Let's turn our attention. You mentioned earlier buyout market. Who are some names to listen out for that you think might be available that might intrigue the Cavs in the upcoming buyout market? I think they still have. I don't think they can use Rubio's hardship exemption, but they do have the ability to use the smaller one that they got with Colin Sexton.
Yeah, you're talking about a guy who's going to be coming in on a minimum contract. What we're hearing now is that Kevin Pangos is probably going to be let go by the Cavaliers within the next few days and return to Europe. So with that deal, potentially going away, or at least Pangos going away, they may want to look at another backcourt player for help. We're hearing names like DJ Augustin, who's going to be waived by the Rockets after their trade for Dennis Schrader. The Cavs could look at the front court as well. Drew Eubanks, who's going to be let go by the Raptors after their trade with the Spurs. There's a few names out there of guys who, again, aren't going to make a splash when you sign them or if you sign them, but they could come in and offer relief, be a practice body, and get you some decent minutes from time to time. Guys who have been around a little bit. A lot of people haven't even heard of Drew Eubanks, but he's been in the league 4 years now, all with San Antonio, and he's a power forward center type who's willing to bang down low and create a little bit of havoc in 12 minutes a game. So those are the kind of guys they're looking at. Obviously, DJ Augustin, veteran point guard, 34 years old, can play both guard spots and has been around. And those are the type of guys, hey, if we can bring in a veteran for cheap and they can contribute anywhere from 8 to 12 minutes a game on most nights and then fill in if there's an injury or an illness, then, it's a no-brainer signing. So there will be more of those type of players available probably by Sunday or Monday, and the Cavs will take a look at those guys. Usually the rule is you have to sign a player by March 1st for him to be eligible for your playoff roster. So if the Cavs do end up making another signing, it would be pretty quickly.
Sam Amico from HoopsWire.com and I going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we continue to talk Cavs basketball. We'll hear from Jared Allen what the team looks like after the trade deadline. We'll also look at how the East has changed with some of the trades. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
From From 1920 through 1960, Cleveland's African American population increased by 750%. Through it all, Alan E. Cole and his camera were there. Today, over 27,000 negatives comprise the Cole collection of the Western Reserve Historical Society, providing a unique perspective of the African American community.
NBA trade deadline has come and gone. Jared Allen, talking about how the new look Cavs with Caris LeVert, how he feels they are looking forward after this trade deadline.
Honestly, I am fine with how we are. I wouldn't want anything to break up the chemistry that we have as a team, the camaraderie that we have in the locker room and on the court. Honestly, I think Kobe has done an excellent job coming up to this.
And Sam, when you look at what the Cavs did, I think they were very cognizant of making sure the guy that they brought in fit. And he appears to. Just early returns are he fits.
Yeah, Kobe Altman for NBA Executive of the Year, I would think right now has to be the front runner. And that's really what it's all about. This team isn't a team with a quote unquote big three, even though you could make that case for Garland and Allen and Mobley. This is really a team in the truest sense. They have very good players. They don't have three superstars. And guess what? The league seems to be moving away from that, especially when you see, the mess that is the Los Angeles Lakers with LeBron, Anthony Davis, and Russell Westbrook right now. So, we see more and more teams trying to mimic the success that the Milwaukee Bucks had last season, even though they have a superstar in Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's a, guy who developed with the rest of the team. He was a draft pick who became a superstar with his current team. You look at the Phoenix Suns last season. Again, not a team with a big three. So the Cavs are a team that want to be what they are, which is a team that's built on cohesion, some really good young players, and guys who can grow together, and then add pieces around those guys. And really, LeVert has become now a part of that. At 27 years old, he still has, you would presume, some major good years left. So it's all about finding a fit, especially in a market like Cleveland. Memphis the same way in the Western Conference, the surprise of the West, Cleveland the surprise of the East. Those are really teams in the truest sense, and you don't look at those rosters and think, wow, look at these huge names. You think, wow, they've got some really nice young players that fit very well together. So it is all about the fit.
So the trade deadline saw Ben Simmons go into the Nets and then Harden go into the Sixers. There were other pieces. Kind of reshuffled things and makes the East very interesting at the top. When you look at, Irving, Durant, and Simmons now, and then Harden and Embiid, those are some teams that it's going to be very interesting. Did both of those teams improve with that trade, do you think?
I would think so. The Nets have been on a downward spiral without Durant. He's been injured and is going to be injured a little bit. Simmons obviously will give them not only another ball handler, obviously Kyrie Irving is only playing in half the games or a little less than half because he can't play at home games. And then, Simmons, obviously a guy who can play the point guard position when Kyrie's not there. He can play power forward when Kyrie is there. And obviously, the guy's an all-star, right? And so it's hard to go wrong. And not to mention the fact that the Nets also got Andre Drummond and Seth Curry, who are going to be two very underrated pieces for them, give them some depth. When you talk about the 76ers, it's all going to start with Embiid still. But now you have James Harden, who is able to facilitate, obviously can score at will. So that should be interesting. I think the Nets probably did better for themselves if Simmons comes back and plays. He's a much better defender. He will give them an elite defender, which is what they were really missing, especially on the perimeter with his size. And he's just, last year he was NBA runner-up for Defensive Player of the Year. Whereas Harden really gives Philly, obviously a huge lift in terms of scoring and scoring punch. So, yeah, it'll be real interesting. Again, as I just said at the end of the last spot, it's all about fit. How well do these guys fit with their new teammates? If it's good, then the Nets and Sixers could be dangerous. If not, then the Cavs aren't going to have to worry too much.
All right, before I let you go, how much better do you think the Cavs got by adding Caris LeVert to that young core?
I think that was, they've been targeting him for 2 months. Ever since the Pacers made him available, they really got serious about it about a week ago. I just think that he's really going to give them, when you lose Colin Sexton and then you lose Ricky Rubio and you've had Markkanen out for a while now, you needed to find something that can protect you in case there's another injury. And LeVert is that kind of guy. Not only is he protecting you, but he's a borderline all-star. I mean, forget the 42 points with the Pacers. He's had a couple of games this year where he's had high 20s, mid-20s. He scored 30 against the Lakers in L.A., broke them down in the fourth quarter. I think the Cavs, they're 34-21. Well, I'm sitting here talking to you now, a game and a half out of first place in the Eastern Conference. LeVert will keep them in that conversation simply because he just should mesh so well with the other guys.
Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. Sam, as always, man, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
All right, Dave, thanks for having me, and I'm sure I'll talk to you soon.
Yep, we will see you again next week, I'm sure. Sam Amico, hoopswire.com. Make sure you read him. He will break down everything that happened at the trade deadline. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. See you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Scheduled guest, Jeff Risdon from brownswire.com, Ashley Bastock, reporter for the Plain Dealer, and cleveland.com. That's tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE. We'll see you then. Have a great night, everybody.